Hi everybody and welcome to AFTV FANZONE Live. My name is Laurie and joining me to my right in studio today, none other than James in the house. What are you saying, bro?
I'm good. I'm both really excited with Just Film Super Fan Debate. That's coming out tomorrow, I believe. I'm both really pumped for that game. Really excited. Really inspired, actually, listening to the City fans, their journey to their first title, what it's been like the last 10, 15 years, you know, on the pitch, of course. And I just feel like this is a young team with a lot of excitement. So I'm excited, and I'm still aggrieved about. Look, we didn't. I've said this loads of times because Forever Arsenal's out. Tactical Insights coming out a little bit later. I don't think we deserved anything more than a point against Brentford. I think Brentford really deserved their point for the chance they created. However, you just can't ignore what's going on with the refereeing and officiating in this country, and this is a show for everyone to just let that out today.
Their feelings and their frustrations out.
Yeah.
So you've heard James there. Call in. Let us know what you think. We got a title of the show today. Do you want to say it, James?
Well, agenda or incompetence.
Agenda or
That's
incompetence?
that's obviously sometimes we come with videos and it's our opportunity to give our thoughts, but I think this is a question that is reflecting what a lot of people are talking about online. How can Lee Mason both rule out a perfectly legal goal against Man United and then allow a completely and utterly illegal goal that 999 times out of 1,000 you wouldn't see given because they draw the lines properly, and he gave it, and that's what a lot of people are so incensed by, and I understand. So I know how I feel. If you've watched Forever Arsenal, you know how I feel, but we're going to explore that again today. But it's an opportunity for everyone to have their thoughts. But how are you feeling? How are you as well?
Man. I'm all right. I had a decent enough weekend, a lot of sport. I was here for the watch along on Saturday. I then left here pretty much as soon as I did my fan cam. I had to drive over to Wembley to attend a boxing event. As you know, I'm a big boxing fan. Dan Miller from Boxer, shout out to Dan Miller. He sorted me out with a nice complimentary ticket, so I was at the boxing. So yeah, I enjoyed that. We had a AFTV FC game on the Sunday morning, which we won that.
Nice.
And then I spent a lot of even watching the Super Bowl last night. Did you catch that?
I heard it was a thriller, but
It was, man. Really good
if
game.
you'll see, I know you lot in the comments like to say, "Oh, James again on another." Yeah, we've been filming a lot, and I had to get an early night because I was up very early this morning, getting everything ready for Tactical Insight, talking tactics on DR Sports as well. So I've done more than my fair share of time in front of the camera.
Do you like NFL?
You know what? I've watched the Super Bowl, I think the 4 or 5 years before this one. I really would love to have stayed up. I heard it was an absolute thriller and it was brilliant. But
great halftime show as well.
what was it, Rihanna, I believe? Yeah. No, I just didn't have. I just couldn't. Honestly, you'd have a zombie right now on set with you if I'd stayed up for it.
Now, the reason why I ask is because NFL would actually be the perfect game for you, given the way your attention to detail and your sort of tactical mind, the way it works. I thought that NFL with the stats and the plays.
Yeah.
But you know what? Let's forget about NFL for
But you're not the first to say that to me. A lot of people have said
it's a natural fit.
Whenever I have, I've always kind of been fairly fascinated by it.
Yeah, man.
But it also lacks another thing that I love more than anything about sport, which is that relentlessness of how football, when you are watching a good football game, it can be wave after wave of attack. Or another sport I love is tennis, and there's every point. It's you rally for a point, and I like games that sports have a degree of flow to them. And NFL, I think, when I have watched it, I've thought they've thrown the ball. Two people have run into each other, and then the whistle's blown. Oh, what's going on? Why have we stopped?
And then there's the endless timeouts and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's a fantastic sport. Yeah.
But let's rewind. Because that's what we're here for. Saturday afternoon, London derby, Arsenal taking on Brentford. Now, this was a massive game, not least because we'd lost our previous game to Everton, and we were at home against Brentford. No disrespect to Brentford, a team that most people expected us to win. So listen, the narrative was set. It was a massive, massive game. I'd caution some people that were looking ahead to Wednesday, the Man City game, and I said, listen, man, we need to focus our attention on Brentford. And listen, I know that the players and the manager would have, but some of the fans, I got the distinct impression by talking to some of them before the game that they're already kind of looking past Brentford to Wednesday. But anyway, back to the game. It's one of those, man. we never really got off to what I call our best start. I thought Brentford approached the game well. I think their tactics were pretty much spot on, and they did create a lot of problems for us. In Buemo, Tony, they're a real handful.
They are, yeah.
And I was not surprised at that in the slightest. We did get ahead in the end. Got a goal in front. I'm thinking, okay, you know what I mean? It looks like we might be there. And then lo and behold, they equalise, and it stays 1-1. And then, in the post-match fallout, there's all this controversy over Brentford's goal and the VAR. But tell me, James, what was your initial thoughts on the game?
That we were far from great. However, I don't think we were as diabolical as I think some people made out. I think you got to give respect to Brentford. This isn't calling anyone out at all, and I respect everyone's opinions. And this is coming from someone who thinks Arsenal were not good on the day. But I think this idea that we were terrible, I think if you think that, then you're disrespecting Brentford too much, because they are a team who have a terrific record against the Big Six. We're the only team to beat them, and it was 3-0 at their place. And look at the goals we scored at their place. One was a header from a set piece, one was another header from a cross into the box, and one was a shot from distance. You know, while we did play through them well in that game, we didn't score 3 goals because we just played through this kind of open Brentford side. They're not like that. You need to do something a little out of the ordinary, a little special to get a goal against them. And we were brilliant at their place. It's the way we controlled the game that was so impressive. In this game, far from that, we didn't get an early goal. There wasn't a set-piece goal that kind of bailed us out, you know, when our fluidity was lacking. But I don't think Arsenal were terrible. I think there was a decent pace to the way we moved the ball around. I think we were kind of getting in around their penalty area okay. We just lacked a little something in the final third. But again, you're going up against a back 5 and a midfield 3 and one of the most physically dominating strikers in world football in Ivan Toney. And I really mean that. I don't think...
Backed up in Buemo,
who is so direct, himself, brilliant. He's a handful himself, really strong. But, you know, the way he gets onto those runs, as well, the headers from Toney, the runs he makes. You know, so we came up against a good side who were in terrific form. And we weren't at our best. And if you're not at your best, a side like Brentford will stop you. But you've only got to look at the form Tottenham were in, yet they still beat Man City, who couldn't break them down. Leeds, who just sacked their manager. What do? Get a 2-2 draw at Old Trafford. Everton, they sack their manager. They get a response against Arsenal. Liverpool, Chelsea really struggling this season. I just think a result was coming. You know, sort of every other performance and result, or let's say the ones that hadn't gone our way, there was a degree of, you could understand it. There was going to be one where you thought, but hold on, but Arsenal should be winning this. What's the excuse now? But sometimes that can just happen because it's the Premier League. So not going in too hard on the boys. I think the one thing that I was tearing my hair out about on full time and a little bit in the aftermath is our defending. I just think we are conceding way too many opportunities. And that goes all the way back to that West Ham game post-World Cup. The amount of times they got beyond, Saliba concedes the penalty. 3-0 up at Brighton, it was nearly 4-3, you know, in the end. And, you know, Man United scoring 2 at the Emirates. Tottenham, the amount of chances they had in that second half, they were largely played quite well. And then Everton and Brentford. So I actually think there's a worrying trend post-World Cup of really allowing far too much space and opportunities against us. But I don't think the team... I think they did okay. The task was break down Brentford, and in the end they did. They just didn't do their job at the back.
That's right.
So mixed feelings. Ultimately, a very disappointing day. But I don't want to go in too hard on the team.
No, listen, I pretty much agree with a lot of what you say there. And I always classify these games. It's all about fine margins at this level. You're coming up, like you said, Brentford, very good team, on a rich vein of form. They came into this game 9 wins. Undefeated in the Premier League, I think it was 5 wins and 4 draws, and they'd beaten teams like Liverpool and City. They beat City away, actually. So these are no mugs, as you said, James. So I was expecting a tough game, and that's exactly what we got. And fair play to Brentford, because, you know, what were they in the league? 7th when we played them on Saturday. So they're just outside the European places, and they could have been forgiven coming to the Emirates and parking the bus, but they didn't. They had a counter-attacking style. And you can see that they're well structured, they're well set up. But we do go a goal up. And like you said, it was a bit scrappy, but we got there. I thought we were a little bit predictable in some of our attacks. I'd like to see us try and switch things up, although some people might say that we don't have that many options on the bench, and that there is some truth to that. But let's talk about Brentford's goal, because listen, following the game, that was all everybody was talking about. I must admit, at the time, I mean, they did review Brentford's goal a couple of times. It went to VAR, and I must admit, I was of the thought it was probably onside and that the goal should have stood. But then later on, we're hearing stories about, the VAR lines not being applied and all sorts of stuff. What is your thoughts on, initially when you saw it, did you think it was offside or do you think it was onside?
Hand on heart, absolutely true to my word here. I thought Norgard was offside.
Oh, right.
But
fair play to you.
Because they didn't spend time looking at it, my brain went, well, they must have just quickly looked at that and then just brushed over it. Now, a little spoiler coming up for the Tactical Insight show later. Graham, I thought he summed it up brilliantly. Surely when a goal is scored, the first thing you're going to check to see if it should be ruled out is the immediate action before the ball goes in the net, which is Norgard's cross to Tony from an offside position. And they didn't do that. But when they were looking to see, well, was there a foul in the build-up and an offside or something like that, I thought, well, they must have just checked and Norgard must be onside. What tricked me was that there's been a few times this season where I've seen someone, I've thought, oh, he looks off. And then actually the camera, they straighten it up and you go, oh, he's on. So I kind of thought, oh, well, it must just be the angle I've got. It's hard to tell, or there's someone else. I wasn't too incensed at the time, but I did think he must be off. And then every time I saw it, I went, he really looks offside. Are we sure? And then it comes out that he forgot. He forgot. You couldn't. It's like turning up to do this show, but without the mics. Yeah. I've been hearing some brilliant analogies all day, and I've never heard anything like it. I really haven't heard anything like it ever. You thought the Wolves one a couple of weeks ago was bad when they had the goal at Anfield disallowed. You thought the one in Serie A was bad, where they thought he was offside, but then they actually didn't realise there was another player playing them all on, which they never checked. But this is as bad as anything.
But you know what surprised me?
This isn't bad judgment. This is, I forgot to do my job.
Yeah, exactly. And I was going to come to that, because you know what surprised me? I'm not so surprised that there was an admission of human error.
Yeah.
Where I am slightly surprised is that they've been really transparent. They said, we forgot to draw the lines. I thought they would have just left it as, we looked at it, we thought it was onside, but really...
we skimmed past it too quickly. Yeah. No, they forgot. But
to make the admission that you forgot to draw the lines, as our title says, is it incompetence or is it something more sinister?
Well, let me ask you your thoughts on the offside. How you feel about it, that this news has come out, and because Arsenal's stance is quite different to the fans, which is, and I'm only getting this through, I think Charles Watts said it on his YouTube channel, journalist covers Arsenal, but I think the Arsenal stance is, all right, it's happened, let's move on. I think people are sort of thinking, this is your chance, Arsenal, to get the lawyers out and make an example. But I just don't think anything's going to come of that. And I quite like Arsenal's approach. It's happened, we've got to get on with it. But how are you feeling? Do you just feel this total sense of, injustice and anger towards it?
You know what? It's a very good question. My thoughts were is that once I'd seen the reviews and thought, hang on a minute, this is way offside. And then to hear what I heard with regards to them not marking the lines, I felt aggrieved about that. However, I'm going to say this, and it's the kind of thing I've said before on various shows like this. I try not to get too caught up in refereeing decisions, because at the end of the day, I'm a believer, I know this sounds a bit cliched, a bit corny, but things do kind of balance itself out over a season, is my view. And I think sometimes if you get too bogged down with these types of things, then it can play on your mind too much and you start becoming almost paranoid about things. And let's be honest, the defending from that particular set piece was poor.
Horrendous. I went mad about that.
So if we're going to apportion blame, fine, you apportion blame to the people up there in Stockley Park or wherever it is. But you also have to look internally and say, look, the defending for that was horrific. Because I think there was 3 different occasions where we had an opportunity to clear the ball and we didn't.
Yep.
So really and truly, if you're going to apply blame, then the blame has to be spread over a number of different people, not least our own players. So I'm kind of the view that Arsenal adopted, which is, listen, it's injustice, but it's happened. There's not too much we can do. We move on. However, there is also the school of thought that says, listen, this is really serious. This should not have happened. What if you get to the end of a long season and the difference between us and City is 2 points or a point? Then you're going to automatically look back to a game like this and say, hang on a minute, we were robbed. So,
well, I know exactly what you mean. And I think what's made this stomachable for me is I'm a bit of a football purist. Is that a really cringe thing to say? What I mean by that is Brentford deserved a point. Now, it was by complete crook that goal stood. It's not their fault, but that goal should never have stood. But the football purist in me knows that Arsenal really over the 90 didn't do enough to win it. Maybe, but Brentford definitely did enough to deserve something.
Yeah.
So I kind of take that in. Just look at the performance first. Why were we not good enough? Why do we allow so many opportunities? Whatever. It's just sort of the fact that this isn't a subjective call, like a red card that was harsh, or a penalty that Brentford maybe didn't really deserve, or something that you just thought. Let's say the Mbemo one, the Mbemo shirt pull on Gabriel.
Yeah.
Let's say they gave that. Arsenal fans would be up in arms about a shirt pull. If it was a shirt pull, you should have disallowed it and all that. It's the fact that this is really worrying. When we talk about referees and officials, they're given technology to help them. And I actually think it's got worse. I mean, I really, really believe it's got worse. There was a time, I've always said VAR makes things better, but there was a time where if an offside call wasn't given, you'd go, they are human. I'm so annoyed, but they are human. But this is, you have everything you could possibly want to make a factual decision, and you totally utterly failed. And I think things can happen, mistakes. I really am one of the more understanding people you'll meet. But what really winds me up is if you just take this away from Arsenal and that decision, there's a really deep-rooted issue in refereeing and officiating the PGMOL and the way the game is officiated here in the Premier League. I won't speak about other leagues. I don't watch them enough. I think when I've watched the World Cup and the Euros, I've largely had very few complaints about officiating, so I know that it can get to a standard that I can be fairly happy with. But I'm looking at Thomas Souček, fingertip save in the West Ham game. No penalty given. I can't for the life of me understand how anyone has looked at that and not thought that's a penalty. And I'm no Chelsea fan. I look at the VAR drawing the lines on the wrong defender in the Brighton Palace game. Brighton fans will tell you they don't have a good record in that game against Palace. It means everything to beat them. It's a big rivalry. And, he's played offside by the wrong defender. Yeah. Then you look at the Mario Lemina red card. He comes... Oh, that was dreadful. He comes over. He's not exactly charging or screaming over him.
And he was the third man in line, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a third to Moutinho Neves. And he gets a second yellow and a red card for his protests. You look at Richard Keys, who won't shut up about Arteta and where he stands in the technical area, and you've got media at times pointing that out, but managers who are being clamped down on for their behaviour on the touchline, and I just think this is all such a load of nonsense. The way we are managing and officiating the game, I just think is beyond a joke. And they have the help to get this right. They have the resources. I don't know what money goes into refereeing and PGMOL, but the Premier League is a very expensive, rich league. I just can't understand it, Laurie. I really
The branding
can't.
deserves better. Where do you stand on the whole conspiracy theory thing? Is that
so? That's
there's an agenda
question.
out again? Because I must admit, I'm not on that one.
No,
I'm not on that train.
No.
I think that if you're going to say to me that the refereeing and the VAR, the way it's applied currently is not fit for purpose, I think you've got an argument. But I stopped short of the old conspiracy theory. They're all out to get Arsenal. I don't think because like you just reeled off a couple of examples that were not Arsenal related. So I think a lot of clubs, all clubs, if you get a fan from every single Premier League club around this table today, they will all be able to give you examples of where their club has been let down by VAR.
Let's look at Brighton, who are having an amazing season, right? But they've had a couple red card decisions against Liverpool in the Cup, not go their way. I think Liverpool lucky to not end the pitch with 8 men. You look at the Matoma offside against Arsenal, where the back of his heel's offside, and really, I understand that was actually a factually correct decision. But then you talk about the application of it, and is that really right? Is that what we want it used for? But no, granted, they did come to the right decision of that. And then you look at the one against Palace as well, but they're having a great season. So my message is that I think it really does go against everyone, no matter how well or badly you're doing. You know, I think Chelsea will be aggrieved by the one they had go against them.
Every club will
Man United have had theirs go against them.
Probably at least one example of where they feel that they've been let down by either refereeing or VAR decisions. Now, we've got a few super chats, Carl.
Yeah, I'll go through these in some comments. For me, to answer your point, no, I don't think it's an agenda. I just think they're really bad. I mean, I can go to the Saka pull of the shirt against Villa, like fifth game of the season, a couple shouts against Newcastle. You know, I don't want to, you know, also live in a world where the Jack Grealish one against Villa yesterday is given as a penalty. You know, it's something's fundamentally wrong, and I think it's that word, incompetence. I think they're really bad at their jobs. I really do. I think Michael Oliver's okay, and maybe a few others that I remember kind of thinking, oh, that wasn't a bad refereeing performance. Southampton, some of the penalties we didn't get. I mean, I actually think they're terrible at their job. I don't think they know enough about the game. I don't. Whether that's because they haven't played it at any level, or they follow it by the rules of the book too much. I don't know what it is, but I don't think
we do though have to be fair and say that even though we have technology, the technology is administered by humans.
Exactly.
So there's always going to be human error. I mean, let's be honest. None of us are perfect. We all like to think we are, but we're not. So it is possible that you can have the best technology in the world. It's applied by humans, so at some point, you know, that interface is going to mean that there is a possibility of human error. It's just that there's so many happening right
now.
And
while I'll always say that they have a very difficult job, it's probably a very unpleasant job as well at times, you know, with the way crowds can be and the online world and all that, and all the sympathy there. But I'm not judging the person. You know, this isn't a personal thing. I'm talking about the job they're doing. Like, I'll criticise a footballer on the pitch or a manager. You know, Nathan Jones just got sacked from Southampton. And look at the criticism he was getting for the way he was talking at press conferences and the way he was doing his job. It's all part and parcel of the game we live in. Sometimes it goes too far. But I'm not comparing them to just the world, this euphoric world that I want, where everything's perfect. I'm talking about this utopian world. I think it's the word I'm looking for. But I'm talking about the Champions League and Europa League. I rarely feel like I'm complaining about decisions there. The World Cup and Euros, I rarely feel like I'm complaining about decisions there. Granted, far smaller scale, I probably watch, you know, a handful of European or international games a month, but it doesn't feel like it's ever as much of a talking point as it was on Saturday, where I reeled off 4 massive decisions that they all got completely wrong.
Can I just ask, are you generally in favour of VAR or not? Because some people are saying after the debacle of this weekend that maybe we should just leave it. I mean, I heard Martin Keown on one of the
and I understand
radio stations this morning. He was saying maybe there's a case of just abandoning VAR and just going back to what we had hitherto.
Before this weekend, I'd have said no, VAR does more good than bad. I think that's Gary Neville's message as well on his podcast. And I would argue that while there are some clangers, you know, they are also stepping in for some correct decisions, and we should remember that had it not been for VAR, we wouldn't get those correct decisions at times. So I probably would have pushed for that, but I'm now getting to the point where the decisions they're getting wrong are so ridiculous that I wonder whether it's just easier to stomach it and whatever decisions goes on the pitch, because referees are human, and there's that element of, all right, well, I understand. And then the second thing, when you have goals like Eddie Nketiah's against Man United, which can't really be celebrated because the linesman keeps his flag down, but it goes to VAR and you want to celebrate it, whether it's better off just having those moments. But then you flip that. If the linesman thought Eddie was offside and he would have flagged had it not been for the fact that he knew VAR could bail him out, say he flagged and we have a perfectly correct goal disallowed, then you're going, well, this is what VAR was for. And
I must admit, I'm in favour of VAR.
Yeah, I'm in favour of VAR.
And listen, it's been an horrendous week for VAR and people officiating it. But I think I'm probably on the Gary Neville school of thought that there's more good of it that comes than bad. I think what's happened, we've reached a bit of a nadir in terms of the way it's been applied. But then at least this gives us an opportunity, or the powers that be, an opportunity to revise what they do and try and improve it rather than just abandon it. I don't think we've come this far with it. And I would like to see them persist with it and try and get it right.
keep
as
it.
opposed to abandoning it.
Keep it, but my word, just get people who can use it. You know, but also when
How
we
are we
say
doing
use
with
it, I can use it. I watch the screen, and I just say whether it's offside or not. And if I'm not sure, I draw lines. Okay, listen, maybe I'm being ignorant there. Maybe it's a lot more to that, but I could see sitting at this very desk on that screen, he looks offside. And they couldn't come to that conclusion. So Paul with the super chat says the VAR refs from the weekend are back on for the Premiership games. The same ref robbed us earlier this season. The team was mentally tired, but Brentford did not take their chances. We did. Paul, I don't know if that's strictly true about the VAR refs back on, because I think
I think the guy that was officiating
Brooks,
in the Brighton Palace game,
yeah, I think he
was due to be involved in our game against City on Wednesday. He's been stood down, so I do know that. And listen, that's only right, isn't it? If they've made a serious error of judgment, then I think he does need to be stood down.
Paul says the fans and clubs should come together and protest against these refereeing muppets, and the system has to be ripped off and rebuilt. It's embarrassing. The only people who can make a difference, I appreciate what you're saying, the fans can only do what we're doing here, which is talk about it on a forum, on a platform, which is what we're doing. And if that's what you're going to be able to do, hit the link in the chat there to get the AFTV app and come join us for FANZONE, which we'll do for the next half hour of the show. But you know, it's the clubs that can do something about it. It's the clubs that need to come together. Arsenal need to work with Tottenham, need to work with Chelsea, need to work with Man United, all rivals, but all come together and go, are we really happy with the state of this? It's affecting all of us.
Yeah, all of the clubs have been affected.
And then have their stern words. But I think Howard Webb, you know, I'm not exactly his biggest fan as a ref as well. I think it feels or sounds like he's going to try and make a big example of this weekend and make some change, so we'll see. So
that's what I was saying. I think at the very least there might be some positive that comes of it, because it got so bad. I mean, I used the word the nadir, because over the weekend there just seemed to be so many adverse incidents that hopefully the lesson learned from this is that they probably now need to sit down and really introduce some measures where they can stop this from happening like this in the future, because obviously it's unacceptable.
I
and
agree.
as we said before, it's not fit for purpose. But I would like to say, and you know, maybe some Arsenal fans are not going to like me for saying this, but it's honestly what I believe. Listen, we saw that incident. It was dreadful defending. As bad as those guys were at Stockley Park, I would say that there was a couple of our players, I'm not going to name them, but they were equally culpable.
Defending was shocking.
Yeah.
All games.
So had they not have been that bad defending, we wouldn't be here now talking about a VAR decision.
And I think that's Arteta's message. Look at yourself.
Take some responsibility.
It wasn't a brilliant performance where you defended magnificently and a terrible decision's gone your way. Because sometimes the message is, you do your jobs and then we'll worry about theirs. And actually we didn't do ours. So I'm completely with that. And we spent some time on Tactical Insight coming out later, you know, really breaking down.
And I'm going to say as well, James, right, like, so you will know that I'm one of the managers of our AFTV football team. And listen, it's at a level much lower removed from what we're watching. However, certain principles are the same. You get appointed referees for some of our games, and, you know, some of the decisions you think, oh, come on, mate. But you cannot start using that as an excuse for poor performance or players not doing their jobs. At the end of the day, the teams have to take responsibility. So I tend not to try and blame referees unless they've got something woefully wrong, or if I'm thinking that there's something a little bit more sinister to them getting things wrong than there's human error. And I can't apply that to this case.
So we both agree incompetence.
Incompetence.
Other people will think agenda. Should we get their thoughts?
Yeah, let's hear what they've got to say, man. I mean, I'm sure some of them do.
Well, we're getting...
and I'd like to hear them give us some examples. Not just come on here and say, oh, yeah, they're all against us. I want to hear you list out a couple of examples that I can say, well, actually, you might have a point. Because I must admit, I think it's applicable to all the teams. Like I said before, and I'll keep saying it, you could get on this table a representative from every single Premier League club in this country, and they will tell you more than one occasion where they felt aggrieved by a VAR decision or referee's decision. So
Sadiq says you need 3 to 4 people for VAR, all trained. What is the chance all of them forget to do a complete check? human error from 3 people simultaneously. I'm going to push back on Jonathan here. Jonathan says, lol, they've missed so many super chats. Ironic given the complaints that people not using VAR technology properly. Look, Jonathan, with all due respect, I'm the first to thank all of you for your amazing community and for joining us on these shows and giving your thoughts. We're about to go live, and give fans the opportunity to come on and chat to us, live on AFTV and give their thoughts about everything that we're feeling. And
I would just say in James's defence as well, and mine, is that okay, you may have missed a super chat here and there, but it's not quite the same as missing a offside goal in a game of such high stakes as it was on Saturday.
We're just coming back to them. We've gone through some. We've got another 2 here from Jonathan, who was complaining, and Isaac. We'll get to them. I appreciate you all, whenever you're saying, I appreciate that you all send in your comments and your super chats, but at the same time sometimes we get criticism for only reading the super chats and not the comments, so we appreciate it. But obviously there's structure to the show, and there's people who are coming in later who are going to watch this, and we'll bring them in accordingly. But we really appreciate it, and don't think that we don't for 1 second. I just want to make that point. Jonathan, who has complained, but I've said my piece now, has said, I'm more concerned with the trend of refs affording our opponents way more leniency in physicality. They can jockey us so strongly without conceding a free kick. And Jonathan, I think that's a great point. Actually, what isn't talked about as well is that Tony had his arms around Saliba when the free kick was given, and Saliba was just trying to retaliate, but the free kick goes against him. So I agree, they need to get better on that, and that's a big point. Isaac says, use it as fuel for motivation, show our anger on the pitch, show the world we can still win the title despite all this horrendous refereeing against us. I agree, I think that'd be brilliant. Shreth says,
I
James,
think it's sorry to interrupt you, I think it's important to make a distinction between decisions of subjectivity, which is the Saliba and the Tony thing, where they're both, to me, it was 6 to 1 and half a dozen.
Yeah, I agree.
So for the referee to say that was a foul, I think we were treated a bit harshly there.
Yeah.
However, some people might say, well, actually, look, Saliba was pulling him first. So I call that subjectivity. However, on the VAR, not drawing the lines, that's not subjectivity. That's not subjectivity. That is just a clear, unforced error, really, isn't it? Let's be honest. So.
Shreth says, James, every top team has done worse after the World Cup. Arsenal top of the table, and look, the FA and refs come to steal 6 points from us. Wenger's been saying it for years, and he's used the word rigged.
I think we had a caller, didn't we? A technician.
I believe we do, but it's not coming through on my headphones. So I don't know if they've... Oh, hello. Yes, we can hear you, Joe. This is Joe's our amazing member of production. Savrin is joining us. Let's get Savrin. Savrin, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, very well, James. How are you?
Very good. You're a little quiet on our end. I'm not sure if that's just us or if that's coming through on the video as well. But look, we're asking the big question about why these refereeing decisions are happening. What's your feeling on it?
So I think there are 2 main reasons. The number one, I guess everyone knows, is I don't think these referees are competent enough. They're not good enough to run the system they are given. James, I think so far over the last how many years I've been hearing you have always been in favor of VAR, I guess, right? After this weekend, you're saying, sure. I think VAR still needs to stand, and I'm with Lori on that. But rather than being removed, it needs to be improved, I think. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
I think it needs to be improved. As much as it's a human issue, for me, it's a technical issue as well. I don't think in this day and age, we should be relying on people to remember to do things. Technology should be checking that offside for 90 minutes. If a goal has happened, it should be checking it automatically. It should be telling the referee it's offside. Now take your decision if it's subjective or not, if there's interference or not. But to begin with, it should be checking the offside automatically, I think. For me, that's where VAR needs to be, even today and in future. That's the future of it.
But correct me if I'm wrong, I think they already do that, don't they? Whenever there's a goal, I think they do have those checks in place.
But I think what Savrin's talking about is it'd be very sophisticated technology that is almost constantly semi-automatically scanning for offside in some way, shape or form. But I mean, I just don't know if we've got the tech for that. But I think that's the future.
It should be there. It should be there. We're not in. We are almost 25% into the 21st century. It should be there already. I know there are sports who are using it. We see these lines drawn all the time on the field for advertisement or whatever. It's not hard to recognize two players from two different teams who are furthermost on the pitch and draw the lines automatically. What you mean by you forgot to draw the lines? It makes no sense to me.
That's
like,
great.
Honestly,
Point.
if I order a phone and I receive a phone, I open a box, there's no phone in it, and Apple tells me we forgot to put the phone in the box. What do you mean? It makes no sense to me. Like, there's no phone, and then I call the customer service. They're like, "We're sorry. Next time you order phone, there'll be a phone in it."
Savran, what do you make of the proposal? And it's one that's been put forward a lot today. Is that they should change the makeup of the panels that review these VAR decisions. So what they're saying is they should try and go for more ex-players or people that's had more of an involvement in playing to come on these panels and make the decisions. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think it will improve the process or not?
Yeah, I think they need better consultants who are helping the technical people to drive the technology. They need someone who is competent enough, who has played the game or refereed the game for long. But they need new people as well, rather than the people who've been helping them to put this technology together. They need new people, more competent people to help whoever the technology companies are running this. I'm not sure. But whoever the technical people are on the background creating the system, they need consultants, old players, referees, a panel who's telling them what they want exactly out of this technology. And then reach out to different technical companies, reach out to and pick up the best solution and then implement it. Maybe implement in a lower league or something first. But I think this technology is way far behind. It's way far behind. Did you check? I think the time that was wasted in the second half, I think was nowhere close 5 minutes.
No, it wasn't.
In the last 10 minutes of 80th to 90th minute, I think they wasted more than 5 minutes. And we were given a total of 5 minutes. Even today, I feel like they are manually stop watching the watches. Watches were created like 400 years ago. They're still using that to calculate the time to be added for injury time.
But you know what's interesting about that? You know what's
points.
interesting? That is an excellent point. But you know what's interesting about that? I remember when we was watching the World Cup, right? And invariably with the games, you would get like 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes added on. And there were people actually out there complaining and saying, listen, man, this is ridiculous. The games are going on too long. But I was in agreement with that because that will actually help to stop people seeking to time waste in that way. If they know that the referee goes over every time someone's lying prostrate on the floor, acting like they're dead, you know what I mean? The referee goes up to them and says, listen, man, you know, I'm hanging on this time, so it's up to you.
I completely agree. And actually, Savran, by the way, you've been fantastic. Thanks so much. I think your sort of point around technology, is superb, and I'm going to explore that a little bit more now. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Sav. Appreciate that. You must call back. You must call back.
Two things I think can be dealt with factually in terms of improving the game. One thing was goal line technology. Credit, they brought that in. It's worked brilliantly. One moment with a Sheffield United goal, I think it was, or someone else. But, who was it that benefited from? Villa. Villa benefited from a Sheffield United goal being not given because of goal line technology. So that was, apart from that, but that's worked really, really well. I think the second thing, there have been proposals to have, I think it's like 30-minute halves, but you pause the time when the ball goes out of play.
Yeah, I've heard that put forward as well.
I mean, why not? I mean, I know a lot of people aren't in favour of that. But how exciting getting to the final, the countdown, as you get to that last minute or two, and players can see on screen what they've got to do, and it's fans are sort of counting down to full time or something like that. But I think the idea of we're going to play the full match, done. It's going to be 60 minutes, 30 at half, and every time the ball goes, it would incentivise, what's it called? Ball boys to get the ball in as quick as possible. You get a faster paced game. It would stop time wasting because the minute they go down, the minute the referee blows his whistle, bam.
There was actually some analysis that was carried out a little while ago, actually, about the amount of minutes the balls
about 57 or something.
Yeah. And the average was a lot lower than people would have you believe. I think we've got another caller on the line, if I'm right.
Aston. Aston. Welcome, Aston. You here to vent with us?
Hey guys, how you doing? By the way, you picked the right guy for this show because if you guys don't know what I do, the reason why Arsenal got me involved in the first place is I critique systems, like on that sort of level. Of what you're seeing here is the result of hegemonic forces and systemic biases, and I want to explain some of that to you guys.
Sounds really technical. Please take it away, because I'm really curious about this.
But be easy on us, because we're not like...
So when we're talking about is this a conspiracy theory or not, what we're actually doing, and I'm going to excuse some of the academic language and just kind of use the straightforward language of trying to figure out intent, and intent is kind of irrelevant because it's impact that matters. It doesn't matter if a bunch of people actually intend on doing something. If they get together and the impact is the same as if they intended it or not, it's really kind of irrelevant. And that's where we kind of go when we analyze the PGMOL, right? When we're talking about biases that exist. The PGMOL is almost all from the northwest of England, right? Like almost every single rep is from there. Not a single rep from London, by the way. Not a single non-white rep, by the way. Not a single non-male rep, by the way.
Excuse my ignorance, but can you tell us what the PGMOL is? What's the acronym?
PGMOL?
Isn't
that the referee?
Yeah, I just wondering what the acronym was.
It's the board that run the referee. I can give you this answer in literally 10 seconds.
All right, carry on in the meantime.
PGMOL is the Professional Game Match Officials Limited.
Okay, right. Okay, carry on.
Basically, yeah, and so when you have all of these people with similar perspectives, similar points of view, when you have those subjective sorts of calls, their biases, if they're similar, are going to land on top of each other. One of the things you said was, hey, can you bring any sort of data to show if there is a bias against Arsenal, right? And one of the first things you'll notice is go look at our red card record. Go look at the number of fouls that we make compared to the number of red cards we get per red card, and then go look at every other team's, right? And when you see that, and when you notice how few fouls we make and how many red cards we get, for example, you can clearly see that there's a bias. It doesn't matter if they actually get together and say, we're going to screw Arsenal or not. The effect is there. The effect is significant. The same thing can be said about the officiating. And different calls that are made. Like, again, Lee Mason making 2 bad calls in 2 different Arsenal games. It kind of stands out, right? So the ways that you kind of fight these things is you need a diversity of opinion, which means you need to have more refs from more geographically diverse locations. You need refs from different walks of life so that their different opinions on these subjective matters can balance each other out, because that's how you get better decision making at the top. On top of that, what you need is transparency. These systems need to be able to be accurately challenged, transparent, so that everybody can see the ways that these decisions are being made. They can point to the transparent processes. Nobody here knows why he didn't draw the lines. What's the process for an offside if he didn't draw the lines? How is that possible, right? So you need to have transparent policies and transparent processes for us to be able to critique and for us to be able to see, okay, this makes sense. I can see where the human error is. Right now, everybody's mad because they have no idea how it's even possible that you miss your one job. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, you make some very interesting points there. I would just say, though, that for as long as I've been watching football, there's always been certain schools of thought. So you speak to some people and they will say, if you're at home, you're much more liable to get a decision than if you're away from home. And I think over the years, that has kind of played itself out. There's also another school of thought that suggests that bigger teams, so-called big teams, will tend to get more favourable decisions than the so-called lesser teams or teams near the bottom of the table. And I think, again, if you, over time, these things do play themselves out. Now, that doesn't mean to say that the referees go out and deliberately do that. I think it's just something that happens in the course of games. It's just human nature, if anything, isn't it? You got a referee there. You know what I mean? There might be 60,000 fans, however many fans, and they're playing they're baying blood. They're cheering on the home team. That's bound to affect a referee at some point, or a lot of referees. So
yeah, I think it's impossible for referees to be totally and utterly neutral at all times. But I do think it's possible for someone in Stockley Park in some, shed somewhere, to be able to come up with.
Oh yeah, they need to up their game, 100%.
To your point, James, that's exactly the balance to that, right? Is the idea that we have a ref that's not at the ground, that's separated, that has the ability to examine what's going on in a non-atmospheric way. But the problem is right now the process says they don't want that ref to be able to make rulings on what's going on with the ref on the field. And isn't that counterintuitive? Shouldn't VAR be able to step in and go, hey man, I know that there's a really loud crowd and everything going on, but you're missing some things here, and here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is why I'm an advocate of VAR, by the way. I do rather like that independent, so-called independent voice.
So, Aston, just to make your position really clear, because I don't want to put words in your mouth, we're asking the question about agenda or incompetence. Which one do you swing more towards? Because I don't think you think it. I mean, you might, but I don't think anyone thinks it's 100% this or 100% that. But where are you with it?
It's kind of like again, and I'm not going to make this show political and bring up what I do outside, but it's like when I critique that system, I'll point out that the refs in England are incompetent. They are incompetent. They're a problem for every team. Their bias against Arsenal makes it so that we are more likely to be the butt of that problematic behavior, but that problematic behavior happens with every single team. And that's what I mean when I say it's the biases on top of each other. The fact that they're all from Manchester kind of plays into this,
Interesting.
You don't go to school. You don't grow up in Manchester, go to school supporting Manchester, have all of this around you, and then have that not on some implicit level affect your decision making down the road. So that's why you need a diversity of refs to kind of fix that problem. Again,
I
London has 8 million people and no refs. That doesn't make sense.
I do agree with that. I think that's the big thing, what you said, diversity of refs and all that. I think.
And you know what? That is the one positive that's come out of what's happened this weekend. People now talking about solutions to the problem, because we can all identify that there is a problem. Now, hopefully, people like our man here has put forward solutions we can start acting on.
Aston, you've been amazing as always, and actually the insight you gave with what you do and sort of how you see it, I think was really great as well. So thank you so much for joining us.
I second that. Thanks, man.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Also, shout out to my show, the Gooners podcast. Check us out later today. We'll be going over it some more.
Guys, do go check out that podcast. Genuinely, I've been on it. Wow, do they have a blast on it. And honestly, go support the Gooners pod, Aston, Mike, and all the great work they do. So Aston, it's been a pleasure, man.
Thank you very much, bro.
Always great. Let me just get some super chats in before they complain about me. Sorry,
I'm technology right, James.
I know. I'm overdoing it. I'm sorry. I was a bit moody earlier. I've not had I've had a long day. It's been good. Rizvan says the entire education of refs needs a reform. Players and managers have to earn their right into the Premier League. My bet: Arsenal building a case against officials.
You know what I'm going to say though, and again I touched on it previously. The one positive that we can say after what's happened this weekend, where there's been so many egregious decisions, is that it's almost become like the nadir, the bottom.
Yeah, we've kind of hit rock bottom now. And
so now,
I think Howard Webb's response tells you that.
Yeah,
the fact that he called an emergency meeting at Stockley Park.
The fact that the Premier League have been in touch with Arsenal and one or two other clubs and have apologised for what took place over the weekend. Because my worry is, and I'll tell me what you think about it. I had this conversation with somebody over the weekend. I could see this happening, and I'll tell you what I mean. So, a lot of people's eyes, we were robbed of 2 points on Saturday. Okay. Now, if it transpires the end of the season, I think you know what I'm going to say now. Say City beat us to the title by a point or two. Is there a case for Arsenal to say, right, you know what, we're going to take legal action over this, because the Premier League have actually admitted that they were wrong, and their decision, whether it was deliberate or not, it's just so incompetent, so negligible, that we feel that we have a case in the courts to overturning what happened in the league.
I just don't think that would ever happen. And I don't think it should, because I'll give you an example that went our way, okay? I'll give you two. Arsenal beat Liverpool 3-2 back in October, I believe. Was it October? November? I think it was October. And there were two big moments. One, the first goal where Saka, it looked like it maybe been offside when he received the ball.
Yeah, I remember that game.
But they didn't have a camera that was able to capture the whole pass to player in one motion. I think that's what happened. So they basically couldn't determine whether he definitely was or wasn't offside. Now I think, look, do you really want to be giving offside for things like that? But look, if you're going down the facts, Saka looked like he might have been offside. That went our way, but the technology wasn't sophisticated enough, and Liverpool have every right to be furious about the fact that their technology couldn't pick out an offside like that. Then there was also in that game a handball where Gabriel, it touched his arm, but it looked like it touched his chest first.
I remember that one.
But the touching his chest and then arm, that might have still impacted where the ball's going to go. So I could understand why Liverpool fans, I don't think it's a pen, but I could understand why Liverpool fans might call for it. That was a game we won 3-2. Now we're talking about a potential penalty for Liverpool and a potential disallowed goal for Arsenal. There are worlds in the big old multiverse where Arsenal don't win that game if decisions go in a different direction. And I just think, while it's not an exact science, you win some, you lose some, I wouldn't ever want to see Arsenal take legal action on that kind of thing. I'd want to take it on the chin and use it as fuel for something else. Liverpool last year lost the title by a point, and Everton should have had a penalty for the handball on Rodri, quite late into the season. I just think you are right. The
reason why I brought that up is because it's on the record that the Premier League have apologised for the mistake.
Yeah, you are right.
To draw the lines. So I'm saying it's not inconceivable that if Arsenal did lose the title by a couple of points, you could revisit that and say, well, actually, at the very least, we want that Brentford game replayed again, because they've admitted that due to their error, that prevented us from getting the extra 2 points that would have made that we won the title.
Yeah, it just would never happen. And I want to say,
I hope it doesn't. But
no, I don't think it should.
In the modern world, you could see something like this happening.
No, fans maybe complaining online, but I just don't think that would ever really happen. Babatunde says, if a wrong decision was made that has an impact on the actual result, I believe it should be corrected and made the game whole, but has to be clear. There was another super chat, I believe. Did I get this one? No, I did that one from Rizvan. Let me see if there's another one and some comments. Jay Chabs says, bring in AI, because some of these refs haven't even played the games. They don't know ball like that. And ex-players as refs. Well, ex-players as refs, you'll never end the whole bias and all that. A lot of people really enjoying what Aston said as well. Facts, great points. This guy's spitting, loving all that. So they're absolutely agreeing with him.
We'll have to get him back on at some stage.
He's brilliant. Babatunde says, can't there be an 80-minute play time and 10-minute review time so that any wrong decision can be reviewed and decision taken? Ref diversity is important. I just think fans waiting in a cold stadium.
What that guy said there about review, they have a similar system in cricket, don't they, where they can review it. So if a decision goes against you, you can do the whole and ask for it to be reviewed. And that does tend to work well in cricket. However, I hasten to add, cricket and football is a different game in terms of the dynamics and the way the ebb and flow.
I'm going to bore everyone again, and I'm going to wind up some people in the comments. And no one has been able to prove to me where this wouldn't solve loads of issues. But I've said it once, I'll say it again, a challenge system in football.
Yeah, well, this is what cricket do.
I'm absolutely convinced that it wouldn't make everything perfect, but it would get us so much closer. Because what you're doing is you're removing the responsibility on the officials to spot everything, and you're challenging the protesters, being the players who feel aggrieved, or the management who feel aggrieved on the touchline, to point out where they think a decision's gone wrong, and then you re-ref the game. Then you ask the referee to have a look at that situation with what he's seen live and what he's being shown, and the information he's taken on from the players and manager, come to a decision. I think it'd add, firstly, a degree of almost tension and drama, which would be great. Arsenal have challenged the call, and then you see what happens. but I also think it removes this whole, VAR and referees in the background looking for any reason to rule out a goal. Because what I said on Forever Arsenal is that actually they were trying to rule out the goal even before for the thing that they shouldn't have been looking for. Basically they're trying so hard to rule out this Brentford goal, looking for any reason why it shouldn't stand. They actually took their eye off the main thing. But imagine a situation in which the linesman hasn't flagged, the ball's going in the back of the net, Brentford celebrate, and then it comes up, Arsenal are challenging the goal, they believe it's an offside, and Arteta and his coaching staff go, we believe Norgard was offside. They've got the footage, they've got the monitors in the background, they go, right, who is it? Number 6, right, we believe he's offside, can you please have a look for that? And then they know what they're doing. And I take it all the way back to a goal that Man City scored against Tottenham in like day 2 of VAR being in the Premier League. I don't know if you'll remember it. Man City 2-2 with Tottenham, they scored late in the game, and it was ruled out for handball because it was deemed to have stroked Laporte's arm before it came to, I think, Jesus, who put it in the back of the net. Anyway, they deemed that a handball. It's touched his arm, so we're disallowing the goal. But no Tottenham player ever protested that decision. No Tottenham player ever said, I think that's a handball from Laporte. Can you go check it and disallow the goal? Because of that, had a challenge system been in place, that goal would have stood, and rightly so, because the handball or brushing of the arm never had a big enough of an impact for it to actually justifiably rule out that goal. Right. Do you see how I'm saying how by putting the onus on the players and the management, only the really obvious ones where the players can feel on the pitch, hold on, there's been an injustice and we have felt that actively on the pitch, or management off it by looking at the footage. That way, I think you're streamlining what referees have to look at.
I guess the naysayers would say to that is that that's going to take forever for games to end if teams can continually ask for decisions to be reviewed. However,
but they'd have to point out what they think happened.
Yeah, and I was going to add that with cricket, they have a review system where you get a finite amount of reviews that you're allowed.
Exactly.
2 or 3, and that's it. So
give them 3 a game in the Premier League. Each club gets 3 a game. And once the decision goes against you, you lose a challenge.
Because that stops people being frivolous and reviewing things just for the sake of it.
Exactly.
So if you give them 2, say 3, for the whole game, not per half, and I think that would work quite well.
1 minute, you give them 60 seconds from when the incident happened to then appeal it. So if they think something's happened, rather than protesting and going mad at the refs and all this, and then yellow cards are being thrown out, first thing, you go to your manager, look at that again. Please look at it. We think that's a foul. They've got it up there. Quick rewind. Yeah, foul. Right. We'd like to protect. We'd like to challenge it.
And once you've used up your reviews, that's it.
I think it clears up so much. Yeah. Some people hate that idea, and I understand.
People, tell us what you think about that. Me and James have just come up with
we have fixed football. Laurie and James on AFTV have fixed football. What do you think?
And we're giving you that for free.
I know.
You know what I mean?
PGMOL. Listen, what's his name? The Howard Webb. Howard, get on the phone.
Yeah. Come
I'll
talk
happily
to us,
break it down for you. And
talk to
honestly,
us,
we fixed football.
Right.
Cliff with the super chat says Lee Baser was an absolute muppet for bottling the VAR, but it was Schoolboy defending that gave Tony the chance that cost us the points, not VAR. That is exactly your point as well.
I do still, however, have to make the point that the defending from that particular set piece was horrendous. I think we missed at least 2, possibly 3 opportunities to clear that ball, and we had done that. We wouldn't be here talking about this thing now. However, it is what it is, and we can all agree that currently VAR is not fit for purpose.
No.
Pains me to say, and it needs improving. And myself and James have just given you one way which it could be improved.
Yep. Well, I believe so anyway. We believe so. So let's see.
Do.
We've been going an hour, so let's get some calls. Apologies, we went on a bit of a tangent, but it was a great point made by Aston as well, which sparked a really good discussion. But let's take some more calls. Production. We've got Jay. Let's bring Jay on. Jay, welcome to AFTV FanZone. Give us your thoughts. I've been talking so much. Laura and I have been really breaking this down. Just give us your thoughts on it all.
Well, first of all, I think when you look back on the game, and I've said this about many games we played, you should never be leaving it down to referee decisions at the last minute to win us, tie us, get a point. Like, we should never have to be in that situation. We had plenty of chances in the game to put it away. 2-0, 3-0, put the game to bed. And if this happens in the last minute, then you can laugh.
Oops. Oh, we lost him. He was
He's
just
back.
getting to the punchline as well.
Sorry, carry on. You're making a great point.
I was just saying, like, we had plenty of times in the game or opportunities to just win it without having to worry about, oh, can we be lucky with the referee? Now, VAR is a problem. I think it's been a problem for a while. It's good. I'm advocating for it. I just think that the people behind it, running it, are just incompetent people, and they just know what they're doing. How do you forget to put lines up? How do you forget to put things into play? It doesn't make sense.
That's gross negligence.
Yeah,
It
and
is.
you know, I've looked at it a few times, and it's the same. It goes back to the United game when Ericsson.
I still don't think that's a foul. I still don't think that was, a foul or anything, but they've gone back into this wrong. You should never have to come out and say it's wrong. I don't understand that, but incompetence, that's what I would say.
Yeah. Jay, we're going to have to leave.
For sure.
But you made some fantastic points, but we just had a few connection issues. First, there was issues with the audio. Then it fixed itself. And then we've had video issues. But listen, you made some fantastic points. And it's been a pleasure having you on. So thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
Just thinking out loud, James, what do you make of there's a school of thought that suggests that human error is part of life, let alone football.
Yeah.
And the human error element actually makes football, it adds to the entertainment factor. So we shouldn't try to remove the human element completely. If you see what I mean.
Okay. A neutral with no investment in their teams or whatever would say, look at what we're all talking about. It's drama. Everyone loves drama. Sports entertaining. Things go right, things go wrong, things go for you, things go against you. And this is just part of it. Suck it up. This week it went against you. And that's just a part of the game we love.
Part of the whole theatre.
And I kind of understand that because sport and football is an entertainment as well.
Look, we're talking about it. The game is on
exactly.
Saturday. It's Monday today. And that's all people have been talking about.
But
since
it's
the game.
also people's lives. It's also a business with millions riding on it.
Absolutely.
And the technology's there to get it right. You get it right. The drama maybe isn't. There's still drama if a goal's given and then it's disallowed in its own way. There's still drama in, Eddie Nketiah scoring, everyone celebrates, and then you're nervous because you think it's offside, but then you celebrate again because it was given. So I believe sport on its own, football on its own, is such a great sport. Because look at Mendy, and his goal against Tottenham. They go 1-0 down. 3 minutes later, Mendy, who I thought, was brought in 4 or 5 years ago, didn't really work for him at Leicester, back in the team, scores an absolute rocket. That's unbelievable drama. We don't need officiating to be a part of it. I get what people are saying. I kind of understand that school of thought, but for me, the football's a good enough sport. It's a great sport. You don't need this to be a part of the headlines.
No, okay. I mean, that was just something that I've heard people
It's a great question.
throw up. Yeah, but as I said before, James, listen, human error is always going to be but even with the technology, human error sometimes is going to get the better of that technology on occasions. That's just the way it is.
Agreed. Have we got any more callers? A couple more to round off the show.
But one thing I don't want to do.
Oh, we've got Harvey. We'll get Harvey on one sec. What are you going to do?
I'll let Harvey.
Oh, we've got Harvey. Hey, Harvey,
come back to
welcome.
my point.
Hey, man, how's it going?
Good. The floor's yours. Tear him a new one. No, I'm joking. Go for it, man.
Yeah, I mean, well, a couple of things. First, I think the result against Brentford was a fair one. I don't think we deserve to walk away with all 3 points there. Secondly, I really, as an American, don't understand why it is that the Premier League and FIFA in general struggles so much with the integration of technology. We've had replay technology over here in the States for decades now, and the challenge system is proven to work. It prevents frivolous intervention from VAR, as Laurie alluded to, because let's be real, do we all care about marginal offsides where the guy's toenail is off? No one cares about that. So the challenge system would address that. But then what's also very different over here in the States is that the people who are running VAR in a separate city, usually in New York, they're called replay officials, where all they do is focus on replays and the technology integration, and that's their job. What I don't understand about the Premier League is that you have a guy who is a linesman for a Saturday game, and then next week, Friday, he's on VAR. That's not his professional job. And what they do in the NFL and the MLB is that every single week they review all the games, they go through everything, they do multiple testing. It's like a weekly drill. Just go, 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 go. And they're the ones that actually have the final say, because they're the ones that have all the camera angles and everything. So when the referee or the umpire actually goes to the screen, they've already pulled up the best broadcast images, the best pictures, the best everything. And then the ref goes to the center of the field and then gets on the PA system of the stadium, communicates the decision to everyone in the stadium, whether the call stands or doesn't, and which team wins the challenge or doesn't. Full transparency, full professionalism. The linesman is a linesman. The referee is a referee. The replay official is a replay official. Limits human error.
Yeah, Harvey, you're absolutely spot on. You've put it perfectly, and I couldn't agree. You know, you're absolutely right. I mean, I didn't watch Super Bowl last night, but I remember watching the NFL and past Super Bowls. And when there's a decision, they come to the center of the pitch and they communicate what's happening or why a decision's made. I think that still exists, so forgive me if I'm wrong. But, you know, that I think you're right about transparency. You see that in rugby. Was it called TMO?
TMO,
yeah. You go, right, this is what I think. You hear the ref. This is what I think's happened. What are you seeing? Show me the pictures. They're watching it with everyone else watching it. Then they go, right, cool. I'm coming to the conclusion. This decision, this is why, this is the ultimately.
I agree. Harvey makes an excellent point. And I do think that's one of the problems with football in this country, is that sometimes we can exist in this isolated bubble where if we reach out a little bit, we can learn from other sports, both across the water and in this country as well, like rugby. We talked about cricket earlier. Harvey made a point about NFL. We can learn from these other sports to enhance the game here. So yeah, well, absolutely.
Harvey, do you think there's an arrogance about referees and the PGMOL here in the UK? I mean, you're right. You know, you see these other sports. Why am I not learning from them?
I think because I've noticed it sometimes, especially when I speak. I see in the live chat a lot of like anti-American or Yank comments in general. I think it's like, oh, American sports, they're a bit thick, so we have our own thing. But it's just like, one of the reasons I think U.S. football has struggled is because they haven't adopted the European model with like relegation and things like that, right? And it's like, it's not your sport, you didn't create it, adopt it. The English, if you are adopting technology integration into your sport, and people on the other side of the pond have been doing it for decades, learn from it. You know, why are you going through the growing pains that the NFL went through in the 70s?
That's right.
Like, how does that make any sense?
I'll be straight up with you, Harvey. There's a certain snobbery about football in this country that doesn't allude to us learning from other sports in the way you've just described, and it's quite frustrating, actually. This is something that myself and James and people on AFTV have talked about before. Yeah, there is a certain snobbery, especially in this country in the Premier League, even in the way we view like football in Europe. You know, we feel, a lot of us, so I'm not saying me and James, the country I'm talking about, they feel that we got the best product, everybody else learns from us, we're not going to learn from you guys. And unfortunately that is...
Well, I mean, in that case, that is true. The Premier League is the best product. I mean,
oh yeah, but it doesn't behove us from learning from other sports and other countries.
100%.
But it's one of the best, if not the best product, because we wax lyrical about the managers we have, the tactics, the players, the goals that are scored, the drama that's created via, Palace and Selhurst Park being a really difficult place to go, and a player like Michael Elise can put one in the top corner from 30 yards out against United, because that's the quality teams have, not because we're sitting there going, what a league, eh? They gave that penalty. What a league. Not a single offside
James,
correctly given.
It's the fans.
It is
I'm telling you, when I'm over here in the States, man, and I watch a Premier League game and you hear the banter and the things that the fans are saying over the TV, and it's amazing. Like, there's no other experience like it. And that's what makes the English Premier League so special. But I mean, even things like, some people mention it, the stop clock, right? That'll prevent time wasting. But the shithousery element still remains. Like, if you want to fake an injury and the clock stops, you're still killing the pace of the game. You're still killing the momentum. You're giving your team a chance to catch a breath and regroup. So that those elements aren't lost. And I think that the general, populace in England is specifically, because I think they've seen so much foreign intervention, have changed so much the integration of the game and mostly the meritocracy of it. Any kind of changes, I think, is viewed with a lot of skepticism, and rightly so. But there's a big difference between a club like City and Chelsea being taken by billionaires and all of a sudden they're at the top of the league versus, hey, like, we're going to integrate technology. Let's learn from other people and see how they perfected it. Those are two very different things. And it's important to separate that.
Fantastic call, Harvey. Honestly, everyone who's jumped in today. I mean,
we've had some amazing calls.
The discussion has been fantastic.
That one,
Always a pleasure having you, Harvey. Thank you for joining us again.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Catch you soon.
I don't want to say though, James. Do you not feel, as I'm starting to feel, that it's great us having this discussion, but do you not also feel that by talking about this so much, we're kind of letting the players off the hook a little bit for Saturday's performance?
Well,
because let's be honest, man. Let's keep it real. No wins in 3 now.
2 wins in 6.
2 wins in 6. The form is not on the trajectory that we want to see it.
Maybe 3 and 7, but yes.
And we got a massive game coming up on Wednesday. Are we not a little concerned? I mean, it's okay talking about Lee Mason and VAR and referees, but are we letting the players off the hook a little bit? I mean,
okay.
Because let's be honest, managers, and I'm not saying Mikel Arteta's done it this week anyway, but by deliberating about refereeing decisions and VAR, what you're basically doing is shifting the narrative from the performance and blaming it onto the referee and the officials.
So my answer to that would be, it's not my job to... I've called out the performance and the goal. You know, I did it on Tactical Insight on Forever Arsenal at full time before we knew that offside was genuinely offside. You know, we did our fair share of, you know, criticising the performance of what went wrong, and I praised what went right and whatever. But ultimately, if the Arsenal players are wandering around and Arteta hears them going, I still can't believe that was given offside, it's his job to then go, shut up. No.
Defend it better.
Forget it. Leave it. It happens. Stop playing victim. You know, but for us, it's just to call out the fact and to be aggrieved by other people not doing this. Because, Lee made a fantastic point of Forever Arsenal as well. And I've loved discussing this all day because people have just been filling my brain with so much great kind of insight on it all. But he was saying he's the match-going fan, you know, who pays. And by the way, everyone pays their money, whether it be for Sky, whether it be to watch it abroad or whatever. Yeah, the fans are paying their money for a lack of clarity and a lack of competency in a really key part of the game. So I think we have every right to highlight it as much as we are. But what the players behind the scenes must be doing is going, all right, but we kind of know that we kind of got away with one in the first half, so we need to up our game for City. We've just filmed some super fan debates. When you hear some of the stories coming from Lewis, Steve, Daps as well, it just I was filled with inspiration. And now, you know, having filmed that, my brain was just, let's go into City. I wasn't sitting there going, oh, but VAR, you know, I was thinking, I'm ready for this game. So it's for the players to be in that mindset. And I think come Wednesday, and maybe even after today and this live and tomorrow, we'll be ready for that as well. But yeah, ultimately, the players and the staff, it's their job to worry about the bigger picture.
I agree.
Have we got any more callers? Anyone else to jump in and chat with us? Waiting for... Yeah, we do. Who have we got? We have Richie or Richard? Richie. Welcome, Richie.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Hi, Richie. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from New Jersey.
Oh,
amazing,
wow.
Amazing. Yes.
I'm a lot of frustration here. Take it away.
Yes. Colombian, South American, born and raised. We follow Arsenal through and through. Forgiving my English, sometimes I get a little nervous, you know, with these fan cams and stuff.
No, we can hear you loud and clear.
I forget sometimes. Sometimes I forget my English, so it gets a little difficult for me.
Don't worry about it at all. Take it away. Tell us how you're feeling about it all.
Well, I feel that the referees are not being held accountable for some of the decisions they made. This is not just about Arsenal. I think it's in general, but I hello. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
We did have a slight internet issue, but you're back now. So carry on. You said the referees aren't held accountable enough. So carry on from there.
Give me 1 second. I think I can't hear you correctly.
Oh, okay. No worries. He's right there.
Accountability is a big issue.
He's right about accountability. Oh, okay. We're gonna bring him back in.
He was making the point there about accountability. I think he is right, obviously, but it's my belief that there's a finite amount of referees, isn't there?
I think so. Yeah.
And so there's only so many of them you can stand down before you run out of referees, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah.
qualified
We need 30 new refs. Yeah.
So people need to get their applications in, man.
Who else have we got? Kian, how you
Hi
doing?
guys.
Where you calling from,
Great to be
Keir?
on here again.
It's great to have you on. You're very smiley. You're in a good mood. It's good. Cheer us up.
I agree with a lot of the things everyone else has said in there, like Harvey's, that I think are very important. But I think one thing I would probably like to say is probably looking at the fact of what Wenger said back in 2018. You look at referees across Europe. There's only 2 leagues in Europe that have professional referees. That's Italy and that's obviously England. And when you compare how VAR is used in both of those countries, VAR, I've watched the Italian league, I've watched the French league, I've watched the Spanish league, and pretty much VAR is fine across all those leagues. But for some reason, when VAR is in the Premier League, it's been very, very poor.
Yeah, why do you think that is? Is it, the thing they keep saying is we don't want to re-referee games. That's why they say we'll only overturn clear and obvious errors. But surely it's very simple. If a decision's given, then the VAR has to step in and just give what they believe is the right outcome. Forget whether it's over-refereeing, re-refereeing, or clear and obvious and all that. Because then you get debates like the Odegaard foul on Eriksen at Old Trafford, where Martinelli's put through. Now, I can see why that's given a foul. I can see why they might re-ref that and say, yeah, probably a foul, so we're going to pull that back. What I cannot for the life of me understand is how that has been looked at as a clear and obvious error. And then you bring on a whole wave of debate. But it was a foul. But it wasn't clear and obvious. Yeah, but it was a foul. So they're just making it worse for themselves.
I think there's a whole definition of what is clear and obvious as well, though.
Yeah, which makes it worse.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like, I just think when it comes to with referees and how they've been in games, like, it just seems, I think, because they know they're being paid for this and that, they're letting things slip more easily. Like, with, say, referees in other leagues and that, they're literally being paid a small amount, yet they have a full-time job, and they know if they make a mistake, that's their job gone. A lot of these referees here, if they make a mistake, generally they just get a little slap on the wrist. You miss a game, you'll be back in a few weeks' time.
But surely they take pride in their work. I mean, surely, look, Lee Mason's had it from all angles today, right? And a little part of me, look, it's not, as I said, it's not personal, and to a degree, it's like, he's trying. I want to believe that he's trying to do his job to the best of his ability. That might be ignorant of me, or it might be absolutely the right, more human way to look at it. But he'd have been getting it from all angles. Surely he doesn't want to be in this position where he's made countless mistakes, have been a part of the headlines. He's getting it from Arsenal fans. He's getting it from the media. Other referees are. Howard Webb has to clean this mess up. And it's not just Lee Mason. It's so many of them. He's the brunt of a lot of the criticism today. But there are so many referees that, I mean, whoever was in charge of Southampton, not fit for purpose. It's not good enough. Surely they don't want this.
Can I just ask the caller, are you in favour of VAR in principle?
Yes, I am. Okay, but I think there is a lot that needs to be done with referees, especially in England. Right. I just think the usage of it right now is not correct. And I think whether, as Harvey said, I think whether you look externally, you look to bring in not referees, you bring in officials maybe that aren't involved in the game, that maybe are prioritising in focusing on the rules to implement it the correct way. Because I think the rules with VAR as well, I think this whole, it has to be a clear and obvious error for things to get overturned, is quite a fine line to really fall to.
I would say that, yeah.
And I think kind of the other thing that you touched on as well, which the whole stoppages and stuff like that, I think with referees, I think with decisions and that, I think it should be, say, 40 minutes. And like what they do in rugby, every time there's a stoppage or stuff like that, the clock stops. And that way you don't have to add on added time. It's literally focused on thing. And then, say, when it comes to the next ball got out played, then the referee blows the whistle or that. That's that's what it should really be with football. And I do think as well what fans should get in football is we don't want the referees all to be mic'd up because we might hear the players and that. But I would love to be hearing the conversation between the VAR box and the referee. Just would be nice to know.
Yeah, because that gives greater transparency.
Exactly, because we don't know what goes on. We don't know what they discuss. We don't know anything.
Yeah.
Calo Slim Game says last season Xhaka was given a foul for bringing down Bernardo Silva, who was awarded a pen. He clearly dived, went to VAR and still stood. I thought the referee didn't give that in real time, or did he? Did he in real time give the penalty?
I don't think he did. I think it had to go to VAR. I think to be on.
Yeah, they're just letting me know it went to VAR, so I don't think he gave it in real time because Xhaka told him to get up, and then when they looked at it, that's it. And then he said, I'm going over. So yeah, so there you go. There's an example. That wasn't clear and obvious, was it? There was a little bit of grabbing or whatever, but there you go. So just proves the point. Kian, you've been fantastic.
Can I just ask Kim a quick question before he goes?
Yeah.
Right? Answer this honestly now. So what do you think of what the question I put to James, which is by deliberating about VAR and referees and that, do you not think that we are, by virtue of doing that, letting the players off the hook a little bit for their own transgressions, their own mistakes on Saturday?
Yes, to an extent, yes, we are. But as well as that, I think the problem is when players maybe can feel hard done by as well. Yes, the players were. I'll give you my honest opinion. That game on at the weekend, I was really pissed off. Like myself and my mate, we were texting. I just was so frustrated.
Yeah,
I think the performance was very poor. Brentford, I think overall deserved a point out of it.
Yeah.
But I think the second half we did so.
We're back.
This is great. They're doing really well. We get the goal, and then all of a sudden, this happens. It was a kind of like a lapse of concentration, really, and we're punished, done by. And I suppose when the players look back at it and they thought throughout the rest of the second half they were fine. We had a few chances, but this one little lapse of concentration, and there's an offside, and we're punished from an offside. Goal. It can be hard,
It can be hard to take. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I appreciate your honesty on that. Yeah.
Pleasure having you on, Kian. Thank you. Final call of the day. We're going to try to get Richie back. Let's get Richie in. Get his thoughts. Oh, he's gone. Oh, we're just hearing from Joe on production that he's gone.
Some good callers, though, man.
The discussion's been fantastic. We're going to try to get Deanie on to round off the show. Deanie, welcome back. How are you?
Dean is in the house.
Good evening, boys. Good evening. I'm good. How are we doing today?
I'm all right.
Good.
Man.
We're asking the question: agenda or incompetence? Which side are you on?
It's a mixture. For me, it's a mixture because obviously you said about the challenge system. Harvey spoke about NFL and this, that, and the other. Like, we can see that it's very simple to sort out these problems. So my question is, why don't we do it? And when I ask myself that question, I have to think, what makes a lot of money in this world? Conflict, controversy, everything else, all of that. Like, someone could be walking down the street, you might see a cat smiling and this, that, and the other. But if the cat gets kicked, that will get way more views than the cat just walking down the street. Do you know what I mean? Now, with the Premier League now, with all the money and this, that, and the other, to keep the eyes on it, to keep the drama on it, you add in that controversy. Now, do I think all referees are incompetent? I'd like to think not. But I mean, when you go back before VAR even comes in, like, there have been talks about referees and all these things that go on behind closed doors, and we as fans don't actually know what goes on. So anything can be done. Do I think there's an agenda against Arsenal? This can be a deep one. Do you know what I mean? This can be a deep one because, like, for a split second, let me be real for a second, because I saw something like a couple months ago where it was talking about Arsenal, and it was on Instagram. It was talking about they were the first team to implement like black players in the team, probably like one of the first teams that have like a full 11 of black players in their team. And this was around 03, 04. Now, racism is a thing. Let's not be silly. Now, I wouldn't want to think that we are getting punished for years down the line because we made a team that became invincible with all these players and this, that, and the other. Like, we come into a country, Wenger came in, someone from overseas came to England, changed the game. These things do happen, and I've never wanted to think like that, but I'd be silly to think that these things, like things happening behind closed doors, like comparisons and this, that, I'd be silly to think that it doesn't happen just because it's football. And there's so much money in football. But these things can be sorted. These things can be sorted just like that. And I have to ask the question, why are these people in these meetings not sorting it out when it needs to be sorted out? It's so easy.
You said earlier at the start that you don't want to think, I think your words were, I don't want to think that all refs are incompetent. And I thought, I do, because I'd rather think they're just really bad at their job than think that there's something like on a more personal level that I should be worried about.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
sinister,
you know, yeah, exactly. I'd much rather think that there isn't a bias or an even unconscious bias, or that there isn't, hands being shaken behind the scenes that we shouldn't. I'd rather sit here and take my position, which is you're rubbish. You're just really bad at what you do. I honestly think that's the kinder way of evaluating. But look, okay, ultimately, it's done now.
I must admit, that is a very good call. He's thrown a spanner in the works there, because it's got me thinking now about unconscious bias and stuff. I mean, that is a very real phenomenon, unconscious bias. And indeed, I did mention it earlier when I spoke about teams when they play at home. Let's be honest. I mean, I'd love to know the stats of teams that get decisions at home.
Penalties compared to away penalties.
Yeah, which is kind of ironic given that Arsenal were at home on Saturday and the decision went against us. But yeah, your point there is very well made, and it's very thought-provoking as well.
Yeah, just quickly, as you are last call, a score prediction for Arsenal City. No, we threw you in it.
Oh, no. Okay, you know what, Bunny, I'm going out there. We're going to smack them 3-1. Yeah, like that look on your face, yeah. Smack them 3-1.
I went 2-0. Come on, I'm here for the ride. I'm going to back my team, and if we lose, it's going to hurt anyway. Even if I expect us to lose 5-0, it's going to hurt anyway. I'm here for the ride. This is what I wanted, a competitive Arsenal team.
But you know what though? On that, a couple of things. One,
come on, let's do it.
All the stuff that happened at the weekend could galvanise the team.
Maybe.
And secondly, we are due a really good performance. We've seen it happen in the Premier League with so many other teams where they've had a couple of different performances and then bang, things go right. So we're hoping that happens on Wednesday.
Yep, let's hope. Been a pleasure having you on. Thank you. Oh, just as the internet seems to go, so I think that's timed. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, Dean always makes some good calls, man. So yeah,
it's been a pleasure. I've sort of taken over hosting, so my bad.
No. It's a pleasure. It's been great, man. I've really enjoyed it. I knew that this would be a good show today. I knew it would be thought provoking. I knew a lot of people would call in. I know you get a lot of super chats and comments, but
have I missed any more?
It really is like that. Like, I mean, people feel strongly about this. I mean, personally, I said at the top of the show, I'm in favour of VAR, but the problem we're having is it's almost becoming unfit for purpose unless something's done about it. So as I said on the show earlier, the one positive that may come from a lot of the things that happened at the weekend is that the powers that be will get round the table now and say, listen, we've got to sort this out because it's in danger of spiralling out of control. And that's what I hope will happen. And football will live on, as
I agree.
It always does.
Great, the great super chat from Aston Mac. Well, a great call to have him on earlier. He sent in a super chat as well. Diversity of opinion means better problem solving too. More people with different ideas to tackle these problems, like how to implement tech and implementing what's been successful elsewhere. All right, I'll leave it to you for the outro, Laurie.
Just want to say, listen, a big thanks first of all to you for coming on the show today. Curtis couldn't make it today. Shout out to Curtis. He's up in Nottingham taking care of his childcare commitments. It'll be in half term. So shout out to Curtis. Shout out to everybody that called in today, man. Really appreciate your calls, as well as those people who submitted super chats, people who
the hair's gone mad.
Made comments. We love it. Continue to support the show. We love when the shows are interactive like this, man. Really appreciate it. Big yourselves up. And come on, you Arsenal, for Wednesday.